Marcus, thank you so much for joining us today, man. It's great to see you.
Absolutely. You too, brother. Glad to be here.
For those of you that don't know, which is probably most of you, Marcus and I are cousins, have known each other since probably 3, 4, 5 years old. Every
Yeah.
once in a while, we'll come across some pictures growing up with cowboy hats on, and now he's living out west in Denver. So, makes sense here. And I'm living in Nashville. So somehow
Yeah.
we found our way to cowboy countries.
That's right. Yeah. I don't know. I think we were better looking when we were five. I don't know. That's or at
There's
least I was for sure.
There's no
Yeah.
there's no thinking about it. 100% we were better looking at that time. But it's always fun
Yeah.
to look at those photos and reminisce. And here we are
Yeah.
today, doing a podcast. Who would have thought?
Yeah. It's awesome, man. I love that you're doing this. This is really cool.
Yeah, well, why don't you give a little bit of background about you and how you ended up in the insurance world?
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, as you know, obviously, our grandpa started this thing. We'll be turning 53 as a company this summer. So it started in 71. And yeah, I'm third generation at our family insurance agency called Arnold Insurance. His name is Chap Arnold, so comes from Grandpa. And yeah, I never wanted to get into the family business. Not our family's awesome, so it wasn't because of that. It was just I didn't want to be in insurance, which is not probably. I think I'm in the majority of the population that can say amen to like why that was a smart choice at the time. It just yeah, it was boring. It was like who wants to do that? And then yeah, I didn't want to move back home, and that wasn't. I grew up in a great area. I just I always envisioned getting married and moving off somewhere else. And at the time, our family business had no um, growth trajectory outside of our kind of home footprint there in Southeast Missouri. And so, yeah, it just didn't really seem like anything I would do. So, went off and started my own business out of college. I was a college dropout, or I am a college dropout. I guess that doesn't change, but dropped out of college and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I got into marketing, went and worked for a couple other firms, and then started my own. Out of This was the best and worst thing I could have done. I had no idea what I was doing, and yeah, so I took out a loan and thought, okay, let's see how this goes. And so started a marketing company, realized running a small business is extremely hard. Had no idea what I was doing, which made it even harder. And yeah, so I did that for about 7 years and then dissolved the company and came to my senses and was like, you know what? Joining the family business actually sounds really great. From an opportunity standpoint, it gave me some perspective, I think, for sure, going out and doing my own thing for a while. And yeah, man, it was great. But the company had grown to the point where we could open an office here in Denver. So that was really kind of the tipping point for me of like, okay, now I'm in. My wife Ashley grew up here in the Denver area in Lakewood, and so it was always her kind of dream and my dream to get her back home. And so it all kind of came together, and here we are in Denver 5 years later, working in the insurance business, helping carry on the legacy, I guess. So
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think looking back to when we were in high school and college, we probably had different paths, right? A separate family business. I kind of was trajectorying that direction for a long
right,
time. Went to college, got away, still had a plan because it was always what Grandpa said and told us. You've got to go work for someone else for 5 years and see how the rest of the world is, and then you can go back. And I
right.
did that, and then I ended up not going back. And
Yeah,
you did it as well, and yet you went back. So it's just kind of
yeah,
funny thinking about the trajectory of both of our lives and how we've ended up here. And man, that's awesome to hear. You did touch on legacy, so I want to hit on that for a minute because that was important to Grandpa. I'm sure it's important to your parents and Angie as well. And it's important in most businesses. So what does legacy mean to you within the concept of a family business, and how do you manage the expectation or the idea of that while also evolving as a business?
yeah. That's a great question, and I think it's one that we are constantly, measuring ourselves against. Or are we doing those things well? Right? Are we still um, growing the way we want to grow and not, getting stuck in our ways, which I think a lot of businesses, realize they're doing. But are we doing that the way we should? And are we honoring kind of how we got here? Right. And, lucky for me being third generation, the two generations before me have made it really easy to be a part of something I want to follow. I want to carry on the legacy. It's something I admire about my parents, and you mentioned Angie, my aunt, and grandpa and grandma. Yeah, the road that they paved before me is one that I'm happy to continue, as far as just the principles that they built the business on. It was community focused. It was people focused internally. Something we say a lot is um, healthy people do healthy work that create healthy clients. And, I think grandpa built the foundation of this thing. And then my parents and Angie really kind of built on top of that with the same mindset of, if we just make sure that we're building this thing with great people, and that people that feel taken care of, people that feel like they have a future here, that we're in their corner, good things just happen. And so I think it's easy to want to stick to those principles because they work. I mean, and it's something that I think gives you a little bit more fulfillment than just, again, insurance isn't the sexiest career in the world. It's a great career. I mean, and there's phenomenal, financial upside to being in the world of insurance for sure, but it doesn't check the purpose box, I guess, all the time. And so I think what grandpa did initially, in the legacy that I hope to carry on, is that it's just about more than insurance. It's about people, and really about the people. And we're about 95 people now as an agency. It's really about those 95 people, and then the people we get to serve, and how we do that is just, I think, a healthy byproduct of building a healthy agency full of 95 families. So
Yeah, absolutely. I think you hit on two really important topics within that kind of hierarchy there, and the principles, right? That's something we grew up listening about
Mhm.
often from grandpa, from parents and whatnot, and then healthy people. And I've had a couple of recordings now, still a new podcast, but a couple of podcasts under my belt. A good majority of them have been business owners within the health field, and I
Sure.
obviously follow you on social media and whatnot. How important is taking care of yourself? Getting out there, running long distances up mountains is what I see from you.
Yeah.
So kudos to you. That's not my route, but kudos to you. How important is that, within your life, but then also within the company, right? I mean, not pushing them to go that same route, but making sure that they're taking care of themselves and taking care of their families, and being that resource along the way.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge, and it's certainly something I'm guilty of not always keeping in the right perspective. And I'm sure many busy people would say that, we're all busy, and, you get glued to your desk or your computer or the phone or whatever. And that's really easy to do. I think what I found, though, is you can't give what you don't have. So if you're in a leadership position, man, if you're not healthy, if you're at your wit's end, if you're overwhelmed, if you're busy, I know very well that you just won't be able to lead well. You're running on fumes, right? And good leadership doesn't happen on fumes, that's for sure. And so I think that's a lot of the motivation to keep that balance, is like, hey, people are going to depend on, I'm going to be called today on Friday the 26th to make some tough decisions, to encourage some people, to lead, to be in a position of leadership. I have to make sure I'm mentally, physically, emotionally prepared to do so. And for me, running up a mountain, or lifting some weights or whatever, helps me do that a little bit. It just helps me kind of, that's my me time a little bit. Like I like running because it kind of clears, my head. That's my quiet time, to kind of self-assess, or to dream a little bit, or whatever's needed. I don't know. This morning, like in preparation for this, I ran because yeah, I want to be clear-minded. I want to feel healthy. I want to feel like I'm on my front foot heading into something awesome like a podcast with you. So I
Yeah.
think that's a big part of it, and also the standard. You want health, like we talk about healthy people. It's not just like work healthy. It's also like you really want healthy people in your in your company, in your agency, in your business. Um, and so again, if I'm going to ask somebody to keep that perspective, I have to also be walking that out myself, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think kind of pivoting a little bit here, maybe
Come
not
on.
a direction that I thought we would take this conversation, but we were talking about it a little bit before we hit record. So I think it's just natural here, and it's not going to be everybody's thing. But you and your dad both are heavily involved in men's discipleship.
Yeah.
What are some of the principles, so staying within, the same realm here, what are the same principles that come through within that part of your world that
Yeah.
then correlate to the business world as well?
Yeah. So again, for me, following two men, that faith was not like a part of their life. It was uh, woven into every part of their life. In my grandpa and my dad, that's who I've seen model this well in the business world, and I think it came from the two fit hand in hand because loving people is what Jesus did in the Bible, right? So like the Christian example is simply like servanthood. That's really all it is. It's like giving your life away to people that need it, right? Whatever that looks like, resources, time, blood, sweat, tears, who knows? Like, and so I think the reason it's a huge passion of dad's, and I hope something that I am always passionate about, is because yeah, the same thing we're just talking about with healthy people, healthy clients, healthy agencies. Like, I think our faith naturally feeds into is aligned with that desire, and vice versa, right? Like, and so yeah, we don't shy away from. We have prayer calls in our agency that, again, we don't force anybody to be on, but we make it available because we want healthy people, and spiritually, that's very much the case. We want you to be spiritually healthy, and also I just think, yeah, it's great. I had a guy that works for me down in Phoenix, and we were talking about like what our goals were, and the conversation was really like sales goals. We were talking about numbers, and he's like, yeah, one of my goals is just to get spiritually like where I want to be this year as a dad and as a husband. And dude, I mean, I almost like stood up on the Zoom call and just, stopped the thing, because I was like, dude, that's what this is about. Like the fact that he can come into a sales meeting and feel comfortable that he's around people that, are aligned in his real life, not just his, job, is that's cool. That's special. That's something I want to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something I've always admired. Being within the family, but on the outside looking in from a business perspective, something I've
Yeah.
always admired. Watching you guys, and no matter what your beliefs are, right? I think it's important to try to correlate those two and have something that you can believe in and really enjoy, because you're in the insurance world. I came from the accounting world. The work isn't always glamorous, but if you're serving people and you're doing things for the right reason, then you go home at night, and even if it's preparing tax returns or reading
Yeah.
insurance documents, like you feel fulfilled, right? And that gets overlooked, I think, a lot when you get into the grind and the day-to-day and the nitty-gritty of just waking up and doing the same thing over and over and over again.
Yeah. Man, and I think those industries, like, and again, there's plenty more, like, um, what an opportunity. That's part of, I think, what I didn't have that like selfless mentality joining in. Trust me, 100%. It was very selfish at the time. I was like, well, this is a great opportunity, great for my family, great for my future. Awesome. But what I've learned is, man, what an opportunity to be in an industry that people aren't super stoked about, like whether they're even working in it, much less if they're, a customer of it. What an opportunity to change the, tone, right? Like to be, when somebody talks to their insurance guy, to be like, for that not to be a bad thing, for it to be somebody that they actually feel, I don't know, excited to have coffee with or something. I don't know. Like, I think that's something we can do in these mundane or maybe industries that are looked on upon that way. Like there's an opportunity to stick out even more than fun industries, like in
Yeah.
marketing, a ton of really cool, creative, awesome people. In insurance, unfortunately, I don't think that's the case. So it's a opportunity to shine a little differently, I think.
Yeah, I
So
hear you. Well, those were the easy questions. So let's like dive into the more difficult and something that
yeah,
impacts my world every day, and something that we're talking about much more frequently than we were a couple of years ago. And that's the world that you operate in, insurance. What is going on in the insurance market? It doesn't matter if you talk to someone about the residential policy, the commercial policy, What are you guys seeing? What's evolved over the last 2 or 3 years? Probably been going on for longer, but it seems to kind of
Yeah.
be taking shape over the last 2 or 3 years.
Yeah. So some of it, right? I mean, it's kind of a perfect storm, not to use a cliche there, but like, um,
No, that was on
so
purpose. I like it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Cross that one off my list to use. No, uh, I think part of it is, you nothing. There's no free lunch, right? So like, insurance companies are, um, when they lose money or when they pay out claims, which they have done a lot of. The statistic I saw was, and again, it's probably even more once the dust has settled, but it was over $20 billion got paid out in 2022, and in the industry in America. And so, I mean, when you think about how much money that is, I mean, that's a ton of money. That affects everybody. We're not going to see companies give out that much money per their contracts and not require some of it back. So the reason you're seeing premiums go through the roof or underwriting get a lot more strict or risks. I just had conversations yesterday where something I wouldn't have had any trouble insuring a year ago is now almost impossible because the carriers that were interested are no longer interested. They're only interested in things that are safe, placing safe bets, and that's all insurance is, right? Is it's a wagering game. But if they start losing, they're going to stop. They're going to stop losing. So they're going to get their money back. And so I think that's where we're seeing a big premium hike is just that alone loss ratios is going to drive that. Two is I think you're seeing with the advancement of technology, with marketing being more it's reaching more people than it ever has, right? On these little things that we all walk around with every day. That uh, they have more market share, right? There's more people in the game, and so I think part of that is you have companies that have over leveraged themselves. They've sold everything, right? Like they've said yes to everybody, and so naturally that positions you that if things aren't, you're kind of all in if you think of the poker table, and if it doesn't go well, then you're all out, right? And so, and I think that's what we've experienced a lot with business owners and families is seeing that the market's just shifted because there's less players in the game, and so those people that are in it are going to charge you to stay in it, if that makes sense. And so, yeah, it's not ideal. I mean, we're seeing some of the things that we're seeing is, obviously big rate increases. We're seeing 40, 50, maybe even more percent increases on a year-to-year basis. We're seeing deductible changes. So what they're asking your skin in the game to be now on those insurance contracts is, where it may have been a flat rate before, now it's a percentage of the the structure cost. We're seeing different coverage limits being provided. I mean, they're just changing the contracts to be safer for them, and that's, I mean, again, they're not wrong for doing that. They want to stay profitable. Just we're on the other side of it, unfortunately. So that's
Yeah.
an interesting time.
Yeah, I mean, we're obviously all in the business world to make money.
Mm,
And what I'm hearing is there's been a disconnect in the risk benefit for the insurance companies that maybe is starting to catch up.
right.
So is that kind of, would you agree with that? Okay. So then
Yeah.
that's kind of state of the market today. What do you
Yeah.
see as the market over the next 5 years? Do you expect, these 20% plus increases to continue?
Yeah.
Does that start to slow down at some point? Is there ever a correction? What are your expectations looking
Yeah.
5 years out?
Yeah. Just like anything, I mean, the best and the kind of hardest thing about insurance is that it's not going anywhere. We're all still going to need to insure things 5
Yeah.
years from now. So, the advice we're giving is hold on. Like don't go. You don't really have a choice, I guess. But we're, like I think there is going to be a correction because just like anything else, as people shift out of the market and get less aggressive, somebody's going to see that as an opportunity, right? And so, yeah, I think you're going to have different insurers come in and see opportunity to give you 20% savings to bring you over to their side. That's naturally, I think, always going to happen. So I would anticipate that. What I do think we need to all be prepared for is the fact that the bar is probably getting set a little bit higher. So like what we're increasing or decreasing 20% from is probably going to be a new norm a little bit. And that's always been the case, right? Like we don't
Yeah.
realize it, but yeah, once upon a time, paying what we pay for car insurance now was insane. And we just don't realize it because it's happened over a decade, right? Or more. And um, so yeah, I mean, I think that's what we'll see. But I don't know. I think the tech side of it's really interesting. I think you're going to see some new players in the game too. I think that's something we talk about being prepared for a lot. Is I think there's going to be a new relationship with insurance from the consumer standpoint of because AI is going to play a pretty big part of how underwriting works, how the customer experience happens. Um, and so I get all those things ideally make a company more profitable, more efficient, and therefore they can probably afford to give you a lesser premium in theory. So I don't know. I mean, that's thoughts. Who knows? I wish I could, promise everybody everything, and I'd probably have a lot more clients if I could do that. But I don't. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. That's what I'm hopeful for. I guess is what I'll say.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a great kind of segue because I was kind of leaning that direction anyway, because it's impacted us um, in a pretty large way on the commercial real estate side of things.
Yeah.
We went when I joined the company Excelsior Capital in 2019. There wasn't a ton of tech being used, and we started uh, putting it to work more often and in different ways to serve our investors and to search for properties and kind of across the
Right.
board. And we're seeing it evolve so much faster.
Hmm.
So, what have you guys seen on the insurance side, on the tech side of things, and how quickly is it evolving? How are you keeping up with it? That sort of thing.
Yeah. So there's a few different parts, right? Like, so from an agency management standpoint, I think we are really excited. It's again, insurance is a very old school industry, so like, some of the technology advancements we've even made within our agency, other people probably laugh at. They're like, "You were doing what before?" And so I think we're definitely seeing a lot more vendors come across our email across our desk that are really intriguing. It's not like, okay, well, this is actually something that would completely change, this system or process for us internally, or this would, you know, not replace a need for an employee to do something, but add to it, right? I can basically expand the bandwidth of my team by, us utilizing this software or this AI component within a software feature. And so, um, you know, that's a big opportunity for us internally. The other side of it is the customer experience. I think is going to be massively different, and so I think uh, that I'm really excited about. It's also a little scary because I'm a person that works in the industry. I don't want it to cut us out of it. I don't think it will, but there is a real like. Are we threatened by that? Yeah, a little bit. I mean,
Yeah,
naturally, if a consumer can say, "Can I get something similar without Marcus being in there?" Yeah, that's a tough hurdle. I think we're all going to have to face, and that's not just our industry. That's a ton of industries that the consumer has decided, "Hey, I'm going to take the risk of not having an advisor in the equation. I'm gonna do it myself on my couch at 10 o'clock at night, and again, I'll raise my hand as one of the people that kind of enjoy the opportunity to do that. I'll learn it myself and give it my best shot sometimes. But I think the reason that's going to be a huge player for us is data is everything. I think in
yeah,
insurance, it's a very data driven business, and so that's only going to help technology make decisions and uh, provide assistance to the consumer. And I think to me, I mean, there's software that we've unloaded already this year in first quarter that we're training on. It's just us basically utilizing industry data a lot better. And so I think that's where it's going to come from is I think insurance companies are going to make different decisions because they're going to be able to. There's going to be a lot of utilizing that data that happens for sure.
yeah, absolutely. I
That,
mean, it's it's hard to do a coffee meeting or go on LinkedIn or Twitter and spend any short amount of time on there, and you're going to see AI mentioned. I think it's on a lot of people's minds. Technology is changing; it's changing faster, and
yeah,
we're all kind of sitting back in a little bit of fear. Maybe some people are being more proactive than others, but I think there's this general sense of fear that, okay, what is my job still going to be here 5 years from now? And at least personally, what I keep coming back to is the beginning of our conversation is that people are searching for some sort of human connection, right? They're
Sure.
looking
Yeah.
for, technology can give us a ton of data. It can be incredibly beneficial, but at the end of the day, I want to look Marcus in the eyes
Yeah.
and say, "Hey, am I protected here? Like, what is your professional opinion on, my house that is the largest investment that I have? Like, if
Right.
something happens, am I okay?" And,
Yeah.
that's kind of what I keep coming back to. I think some industries will be impacted more than others, but,
Sure.
the accounting industry, the insurance industry, um, people need that connection,
Yeah.
and to hear that it's going to be okay. So that's what I keep falling back on. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
No, I totally agree. I think actually on one of those long runs you mentioned, the guy that I tend to do those with, we talk about like everything under the sun, and I think because we just have nothing else to do
Yeah. What are you
forever.
going to do for 4 hours?
Yeah, you're like, hey, let's talk about everything we can think of and hash it out. But one of the things we were talking about was, yeah, I think technology we've been so excited, right? Like, I mean, the fact that we have a supercomputer in our pocket at all time, like it's incredible, right? And like the best camera we would have ever owned is all in one place, right? I mean, it's that thing is insane, right? The computer I'm on talking to you. I mean, the fact that we're doing this podcast, amazing. Social media, amazing. Like the connection that we have with through all those things is incredible. But I think we've gotten so excited and so engulfed in it that people now are realizing like, oh, there's a downside to this. Like there's being so dependent on this. Um, think about the fact that you could literally never leave your apartment and functionally do everything you needed to do. Like if you're somebody that lives in your house and an apartment, works there, you can have groceries delivered there, you can watch your favorite entertainment there. Yeah, I mean, there's literally nothing you need to leave for. Somebody will bring you everything because you ordered it on a phone. And I think people are realizing, like, wait a second, that's not good for me. Like that's not. I don't want to live a life where you know um, everything happens through a phone. I want to still have a coffee with somebody. I want to go grab a drink. I want to have a great meal. I mean, when I was in Nashville last time, you can't. Is it great that we can stay connected through technology? Absolutely, but it's not better than sitting down and having barbecue in Nashville on a sunny day outside. That's that you can't manufacture that on social media. And so
Yeah, I
yeah,
mean
I think you're
that's a great point. We could go down a complete rabbit hole of, how society will kind of rebel against technology, I think to some degree.
yeah
Especially in their personal lives, right? We've been so connected and everything's been so much out there of our personal lives. I think there will be certainly a constituency of people that maybe kind of rebel against it and you see more disconnection. Um, you know, but I think from the business world, that we just got to continue to search for ways that it just makes our job easier so
yeah
that we can spend more time and get the, you know, possibility of focusing on that work life balance that we were talking about earlier. Because they didn't have that right 100 years ago or whatever, and we've kind of evolved, right? And that's what it's all about is, hey, how can it make my job easier? Or the 95 people that work for me, how can it make their job easier? And hopefully it's less, you see less jobs because of it.
yeah
But switching gears a little bit here, insurance, as you kind of alluded to earlier, is super democratized, right? No matter who you are, what your role is, you probably know a couple of insurance agents that roll around within your circle.
yeah
So you're VP of sales, right? That's your title.
right.
How do you distinguish yourself from everyone else, outside of just focusing on the people, right? Because there's a lot of folks that go out there and say, we care, we focus, all these things. Like, how do you go out there and continuously provide value in a world that can, seem so busy?
Yeah, so I think this is a great question we always go back to, right? Like, hey, we're not the first people to be like, we provide great service and low
Yeah.
prices. Like that's everybody's billboard. So like, we're not original in that. The I think it's the mundane moments of service, I think, are like really important, like quick answers, quick advice, quick change, whatever. I had a guy, they reach out yesterday, he's buying a new car. The expectation from a consumer in 2024 is I don't have to wait long to get the answers I want or to make the things happen I want to, because like I just said, I mean, I can order a new car and have it brought to my office probably by tomorrow. Like, that's the world we live in. So like the fact that
Yeah.
I need to, I have a question about my policy and you need to get back to me tomorrow is unacceptable. Right. So there is, I think if there's one thing that we hear in the marketplace that people aren't happy with a lot, that honestly gives us opportunities, it would be communication. Like it's really that simple most of the time. And I know for me, where I have dropped the ball, if I like it somewhere goes back to just communication. Like if I look at client relationships that didn't go the way I wanted to, I just my message timing or delivery wasn't where it was supposed to be, in at some point. Um, and so I think we are huge communication people. That's what we like. Everything, every meeting we have, it really is just communication packaged probably a little different. Like that's what we're always focusing on: communication internally, communication with clients, communication with our carrier partners. And so I think that's how we separate ourselves, which I know is like a super broad answer. But that really is where the bar is set. I think most people are like, hey, I asked for an answer or I asked for advice and I don't feel like I got it, or I didn't like how I got it, or I didn't like when I got it, or, whatever. How many people that are listening to this would say, I never talked to my insurance guy. Well, that's crazy, right? Like, because to your point, that insurance guy is a part of your biggest investment. Like he's protecting your home, your house, your auto, your business, whatever it may be. And yeah, you need to have a relationship with him. But most people would like that. They just feel like I never talk to the guy. I never hear from him. I'm never going to get a hold of him. I just deal with his assistant. I don't actually know who he is. Whatever. So that's our focus on it. And again, I know that that's not like some big cool initiative. That's just more like, hey, when somebody calls you, call them back.
Yeah.
It's
Be
that
there.
simple. Yeah, yeah,
I like to, even outside of the podcast, I love to look for similarities in anything that's successful, right? You want to be successful in your personal life or in the gym or whatever it is, find people that are doing it and look for the similarities. Each one of them is going to have their own kind of perspective or things that they do that are a little bit more niche.
right,
But there are similarities across success. And
yeah,
from our perspective, we're in a different world than you
right,
on the industry side, but it's the same thing in that anytime from an investor side or from any of our third parties where it didn't go the way that we wanted to, every
yeah,
single time we can go back to communication. It doesn't
mhm,
mean that things aren't going to go wrong. Things
right,
happen, right?
yeah,
Um, but it's about how you communicate that, how you show up, how you're there. And so I'm glad that you brought that up, and I think that's kind of a perfect spot to end the conversation today,
yeah,
and to just kind of drive home. But man, thank you for coming on today. It's
absolutely,
always a pleasure to catch up, either, when you come to Nashville or I'm doing my bachelor party not too far away from you here shortly. So
right,
hopefully we get to catch up in the mountains.
yeah, yeah,
And man, I just really appreciate, everything you do for me. And we don't get the chance to work together on the work side of things just because of, the name of the agency and at least an appearance of conflict of interest. But I always use Marcus and Arnold Insurance team for my personal stuff, and highly recommend
yeah.
checking them out. Marcus, thank you. How can people find you if they want to get in touch?
Yeah, thank you, brother. Yeah, Arnold Insurance. We're in 10 different cities across the country. So if you wanna see if we're close, even if we're not, we can still probably help you. myarnoldteam.com is our website. My Arnold Team. We're on all socials: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that. LinkedIn. You can find us if you just search Arnold Insurance. You'll see this little A logo, and that'll be us. You'll probably see me talking about something on there too. So yeah, man, thank you for having me on, and man, I'm excited to see where this podcast goes. It's an awesome thing you're doing.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you.